Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Parkinson's Podcast. Welcome to the Hear Here Parkinson's Podcast, where you will hear from special guests covering the world of Parkinson's with a deep dive on the World Parkinson Congress and a look at how the WPC has helped make extraordinary progress in the Parkinson's community by creating space for people with Parkinson's to have a seat at the table.
Hear, 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 hear. It's another episode of the new podcast leading us all up to the next Parkinson World Congress in Phoenix, Arizona in May 2026. And my name is Edgar Valdmanis. I'm one of the 15 ambassadors for the Congress. And I'm happy to have this chore on my shoulders to do a bi-weekly podcast episode about why you and I and everyone else should absolutely go to Phoenix next year. So we are biased. Yes, we are. Today, my almost regular co-host, Eli Pollard, is off, and she's being traded in for Monique Bosman from the Netherlands. Hello, Monique. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. I'm honored to be here.
Good, good. And you have another Dutchman on board as well, who is the very distinguished Professor Bas Bloem. Hello, Bas. How are you?
It's an honor and privilege to be here, Edgar. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, whoa. Actually, we can dive straight in here. I spoke to Eli Pollard earlier today, and she said, oh, right, it's today you have Bas as your guest. I remember back in 2004 or 5 or something, she said his name first came up speaking about the program for the Congress. Then someone said we should invite this Dutchman who's really up and coming. I think we can say that you're no longer up and coming, but you have arrived. So
yeah, although it's a lifelong learning experience. So it's true, a lot has happened in the last 20 years, and it's gratifying to see that on the one hand, we're making progress. On the other hand, I'm always inspired by listening to people with Parkinson's. And despite all the progress, I saw a message on Twitter or X, which I've actually abandoned, by the way, but that's a little sidekick, who said, look, if I was to enter a showroom for cars and they showed me models from 1967, I would be insulted. Yet levodopa, introduced in 1967, is still the cornerstone of treatment. So yes, there is progress. Yes, I'm happy with all the developments, including my own career. But no, I'm not happy with where we are. There's a lot more work to be done.
right.
True. I have by the way, WPC has abandoned X also. We're now on Blue Sky. And
very good.
Very good.
Could I kick off with the first question?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Monique.
Yeah, Bas, are you planning to attend the WPC?
In Phoenix.
Look, I've planned one thing for next year, and that's WPC. And all the rest is secondary. Of course, I haven't missed a single WPC event. And of course, I will be in Phoenix.
So even if you're not invited as a speaker, you would come?
It's crossed out in my agenda.
Great.
I don't think you can be active in the Parkinson field without showing up.
That's a good quote there. But is that, as Monique said, even if you're not invited to speak, even if the program suddenly shows up and there is no Bas Bloem in the program, will you still go?
The reason why, of course, the reason I go is not to present. The reason I go is, my walk. I've been to every single WPC Congress. It's hard work, and it's not hard work because I present talks. A talk is easy, but it's speaking to all those people with Parkinson's who are there. And that is and rewarding and inspiring. So I go there to be inspired, and I go there to help and speak to people. And if I speak, that's a bonus. Sometimes also a challenge. Don't have to prepare anything if I'm not speaking. But no. I'm going to meet people and to be there and to express my support, for a world without Parkinson's as an ambassador.
The first time that you went, did it change you in any way?
Completely. I think the whole idea of a mixed congress is brilliant. I think the concept has improved over time. I think the first one was still one size fits all for both groups, or largely. And I think based on the initial experience, it's become more refined with a light program and a more complex program and a sort of intermediate program. But the whole idea of doing a congress together changed my mind. I think it's a wonderful model.
I totally agree. You're always very positive and favor the input of patient involvement. Can you explain why, what you find important about that?
Well, I would almost reverse the question. Could somebody explain to me why you would not do that? Healthcare is not an industry meant to please doctors or other healthcare professionals. We have the honor and privilege, and we should be humble in being allowed to support families with Parkinson's. And I think the time, and make no mistake, I think people go into healthcare for the right reasons. They want to help, they want to support. But I think the time that sitting on a throne, we look down and we offer help and tell people what to do is old-fashioned. We don't do anything for people with Parkinson's. We do everything with people with Parkinson's, because ultimately we are there to serve them. And if you're in a business, if you are Steve Jobs running Apple, you ask your client, how can I help you? What is a product that you would like? So I often say, I run a supermarket. I put products on the shelf, but people with Parkinson's pick from the shelf what they like. And to my mind, it's the only way forward. It's gratifying, and it makes care and science both better. It makes it better, and we can speak more. We've got time. We give you ample examples of where doctors sitting on their throne did maybe well-intended projects, but maybe didn't resonate or weren't relevant to people with Parkinson's, or were never implemented because nobody thought about what people liked in daily practice. And that's a waste of energy and time.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, here, absolutely. I'm just sitting, taking all this in and then, wow, if everyone was like this. We also spoke to Terry Ellis a couple of weeks ago here. She's a program chair for, if I remember right, the track is called Comprehensive Care Track in the program. And she runs a clinic in Boston, USA, which is closed down for the entire WPC in Phoenix, because she's taking everyone on her staff with her to Phoenix.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I thought that was also outstanding. It's simply...
That does say a lot. It says a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there a group, Bas, that you would especially recommend to attend, or a type of people, healthcare worker, or clinicians, researchers, whatever?
No, both. I think both clinicians and scientists will find this extremely gratifying, to learn from people with Parkinson's. To share their own knowledge and to receive feedback. It will make you a better doctor. It will make you a better therapist. It will make you a better scientist. So I would recommend it to all my colleagues. I couldn't think of a discipline that should not go. And of course, I would recommend it to people with Parkinson's. And lest I forget, every time I say Parkinson's, I mean Parkinson's disease and Parkinsonism. I know that many people with MSA, PSP, Lewy body disease, cortical basal degeneration feel left out and neglected. WPC does also pay attention to the atypical Parkinsonisms, and I will use it to, just for brevity's sake, I'll call it Parkinson's disease, but I mean the whole spectrum of Parkinsonism.
Right, even the ones that we do not like to talk about, really, because they are lethal.
Sure, they are more rare, but it makes it all the more important to pay attention to it, because people with a rare disease feel completely left out. And at the same time, and research is more difficult because it is a rare disease. It's difficult to find funding. But many strategies, for example, we're talking about person-centered care, technology, that applies as much to people with Parkinsonism as it applies to people with Parkinson's disease. So this Congress is also very much interesting for them.
Yeah, the Patient Association in the Netherlands is paying more attention to the people with Parkinsonisms, more articles online and in the magazine. I forgot what I was trying to say. Oh, yeah. Also for them, it's more difficult to attend. So I was thinking, how can we give advice to people who would like to go but can't? How couldn't they follow us and get involved anyway?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. It's definitely a demanding Congress. I mean, I'm fit, as fit as you can be, but I'm exhausted after the Congress, really exhausted, physically, but also mentally. You hear so many stories, inspiring, sometimes heartbreaking, and mixes in between the two. So it's mentally and physically demanding. So if you've got late-stage Parkinson's, if you experience a lot of fatigue, think twice. I'm not sure, but maybe Monique or Edgar, you know better. I hope that the speeches and the lectures will be recorded and maybe reviewed offline. If you do attend and if you do have limited energy, I always try to learn from people with Parkinson's. Marina Noordegraaf was a fellow patient of the two of you, and she wrote a book about detours, and not the well-known physical detours, such as crossing a street, going from the white to the black stripes of a zebra, but also mental detours. And for example, spreading your energy across the day, making a choice and not attending everything, or giving everything you got on one day and accept that you will be exhausted the next day. So borrow your energy from the next day, waste it on day one, but then pay the price, but realize it, that you'll pay the price. Yeah. So, but plan carefully in advance and don't try to attend everything. Make choices is what I would recommend.
That's the first mistake I made. The first Congress, wanted to visit too many talks, but then you realize what other people said. You should also have time to relax and go to the meetings, and in between talk to people in the hallway.
Yeah, exactly.
And we do, the WPC does record and makes the talks, a few of them, is the main stage, available later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think for some countries, people will make online notes and describe what went along there.
And we have discussed with Eli Pollard that at least the countries who are sending more people could try to do an after program when they go back home. Said that for Netherlands, where the two of you come from, if there is like 50 people going, but another 50 remain in the Netherlands for various reasons. It could be budget, it could be timing, it could be, as we speak now, of fatigue. and not managing a 3-day Congress, then they stay home. But the 50 that do go could make a mini program when coming home.
Yeah. Last time we did. Yeah, in Holland we did two things. We made from the association reports online. The 5 people made their own report about what they attended and told about that.
Yeah.
So everybody could read it. And I think Parkinson TV made a whole broadcast about the WPC.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will try and achieve that next year in Phoenix as well. I wanted to jump in with a topic that both Eli and I are passionate about, and that is what we call the unconference, which is actually a team in the meetings industry, is what happens between the main stage talks and the focus groups and the whatever, which is when you bump into someone and you say, I was just going in here to listen to this, and then you, Monique, say, oh, I can tell you all about that, plus some, if we take a cup of coffee outside the room. And then we sit down with a cup of coffee or a wine or whatever, just the two of us, and speak instead of sitting inside listening to Bas Bloem. We are outside the room in the hallway somewhere. And that can sometimes be twice as good because we just meet up. And as I say, it's called the unconference. It's literally when you bump into other people, or you're in the lunch queue there waiting for your lunch bag to be delivered. And again, you start talking to the person next to you, and it turns out you have a common thing you fight for or are passionate about. And you can get just as much out of the next hour speaking to that person in the lunch queue as you would inside the big main meeting room or the round table discussions or whatever that are orchestrated from before.
Yeah. For me, I did meet some extraordinary people with stories like from Africa or from England, and so inspiring people. But how is that for you, Bas? Does that happen to you?
Oh, yes, but that's the reason I'm so exhausted. So, everybody knows me for some reason, and I'm 2 meters tall, 6'8" in American terms. So I can't hide, and everybody sees me. So to walk 20 meters from A to B takes me about an hour, literally. So I have this all the time. But I agree, Edgar, it is the most gratifying part of the meeting. But and that's the reason, again, to answer your question again, that's the reason I'm coming, speaking in a session or not. I will come because of exactly that part of the Congress.
Yeah.
You have any tips?
I think, Bas, that people know you not or see you not just because you're 2 meters tall, but also because you're one of 4 co-authors of a book called Ending Parkinson's Disease. It's one of my favorite books on the subject because I'm waiting for someone to end my disease. As I don't know who wrote which chapter in the book because you don't say, but the 4 of you are pretty well aligned in saying pollution has a big story or is a big part of Parkinson's disease. Are you still on that? I mean, it's 5 years since the book came out, so you could have...
Oh, I would say increasingly so. Compared to the time when the book came out, I'm even more convinced about the role of the environment. Parkinson's is, to a large extent, if not to a very large extent, a man-made disease caused by exposure to toxic chemicals in our living environment. It includes, but it's not restricted to pesticides. It also includes trichloroethylene, used to decrease metals and also to laundry your clothes. It's heavy metals, it's air pollution. So Parkinson's is an environmentally driven disease, which makes it potentially, at least in part, if not to a large extent, a preventable disease that will take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I understand that everybody listening to this podcast who is already affected might think, oh, well, gosh, I already have it, so it's too late. No, there's at least 2, probably 3 studies which have now shown that if you continue to be exposed to these chemicals after your diagnosis, your prognosis is worse. So if you're hearing this, A, become an activist in trying to prevent the disease in friends, neighbors, family members, other people on the planet, and B, prevent yourself from being exposed to the best of your abilities, which probably means eating organic food, although that's never been shown in trials. It means trying to avoid air pollution, which is the most difficult thing in the world, of course. Trichloroethylene, make sure you're not living in America on a Superfund site, which is soil contaminated with trichloroethylene. Clean the air in your house, etc. If you live in the vicinity of farmland, close your windows, but try to eradicate those chemicals from our environment as much as possible.
Yeah, if I can add, for Edgar, in the Netherlands, we do have World Parkinson's Day, 11th of April, but we will go and demonstrate on that day, Pesticide Friday, in The Hague, to get attention and to get politicians to make wise decisions about the pollution in our environment, together with several other organizations, the Parkinson Association, with all kinds of organizations, to ask and demand action on that. So we're trying to get to be more heard, and we're taking action.
Yeah,
excellent. A bit political here, but I think we can. We have room for that. When you say pollution, Bas, how about at the time of recording here, there are still a couple of wars being fought, one in Ukraine and one in the Middle East, at least one in the Middle East, depending on how you count the different sides there. I mean, all the bombs and things, I don't know what goes into them, but it's sort of not fruit juice, is it? I mean, it's highly polluted, everything that they shoot off. As we sit here and speak, each in our safe environment, nicely in the Netherlands or in Norway, for my sake, we're not exposed to this, but all the people that are exposed to the weaponry and the bombs going off in Middle East, in Ukraine, will they now run a higher risk of developing Parkinson's?
Well, the honest answer is I don't know. What I can say is that I hope there will be world peace anytime soon. What I see, and it's so disconcerting, the world is polarizing. We see a shift towards extreme right. And it's fine that people have their opinions. But what I don't like is the polarization in our society. And what I just hope is that we find a way forward and open a dialogue. Ultimately, polarization arises from fear. So I think people are worried, people are anxious. But if you're worried, don't dig a trench, but come out of your trench, stick out your hand and speak to people. People are generally nice. I have a mutation in the gene for optimism. I think the overwhelming majority of people in the world mean well, but people are sometimes anxious, and anxious people do strange things. Come out of your trench, stick out your hand, open a dialogue, and you will be positively surprised. If you stick out your hand, show your vulnerability, show your uncertainty, what worries you, listen to the other person, try to understand the other person. And this relates to the Ukraine and Russia. It relates to the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. It relates to farmers who use pesticides and their neighbors who might develop Parkinson's. There is not a single farmer in the world who intentionally intoxicates himself, his family, or his neighbors. So don't blame farmers. Open a dialogue how farmers can do their beautiful work and help to nourish the world in a way that's safe for them, their own families, and their environment, instead of starting to accuse each other and starting a fight. And going back to WPC, WPC is such a uniting event. It brings people together. It brings scientists, clinicians, and patients and their families together in one spot. It's a unique event once every 3 years. You've got to be there to experience that magnificent feeling of feeling united, bringing people together. And if the spirit and atmosphere of WPC would spread to Gaza, if it would spread to the Ukraine, the world would be a better place.
Whoa.
So true, so true. And that's what Eli said about the WPC. It's so inclusive. We're not political. And Parkinson's, it hits everybody. It doesn't discriminate. So Parkinson is completely. I find it difficult how to express this, but everybody can be affected by that. So everybody comes together to try and solve that. And that happened also with COVID. Everybody was had anxiety, was afraid to catch it and to die from it. And suddenly many more things were possible. And I think if everybody would be afraid for Parkinson's, it would be solved quicker. But true, fear is not always the best advisor.
No, I think this was excellently put by you, Bas. As you said, stretch out the hand, saying, come on, be my friend, instead of digging a trench and shouting at each other from the trenches. I think so too, that we should go out. And again, as you say, well, it's not polarization, but still in many congresses, it could be that the physiotherapists are in one room, the doctors are in another one, the patients are in a third, but at the WPC, we're all in the same room. And we meet together and we speak together and we learn from each other.
Yeah, and at that point, I think the most brilliant ideas come from cross-pollination, that people from different areas give their ideas to each other, and new ideas spring from that. You sow seeds, and then they call it a fluke. But if you bring the people together, it's not by accident. You purposely bring people together to have surprises.
Yeah, which leads on to another thing. It's now about 10 years ago, please correct me, Bas, when you and one of your colleagues devised something called the Parkinson Net. And I'm very happy to say that Norway was country number 2 in adopting the Parkinson Net model. Can you say a little bit about it for those of our listeners who have not heard about Parkinson Net before?
So Parkinson's disease is one of the most complex disorders on the planet. It's complex. Everything about Parkinson's is complex. The clinical manifestations, motor and non-motor, the treatment, but also the wishes and needs of individuals living with the disease. And that complexity necessitates specialization. I think people with Parkinson's have the right, in capital letters, the right to be seen by experts who have received deep training in Parkinson care, who've read the latest evidence, who've been updated according to guidelines, and who collaborate as a team with other professionals. Like a good volleyball team. I used to be a semi-professional volleyball player, so this is in my DNA. And what ParkinsonNet is doing is, rather than leaving care to everybody doing a little bit of Parkinson's, we've selected a restricted number of healthcare professionals from now professional disciplines. And within each discipline, we select a small number, train them according to evidence-based guidelines, and then selectively refer people with Parkinson's to those experts. So not only do they improve their knowledge through baseline training, they continuously bring their knowledge up to speed by treating a high caseload. It's a lifelong learning program. There's an annual congress. There are multiple regional congresses each year. We have our online training courses. We have guidelines. The professionals are also educated about what other professionals in the Parkinson field have to offer. So if you encounter a problem that you cannot address, you know who can. So you start to build like a volleyball team with a setter and a spiker and a libero and, multiple different disciplines working together. And very importantly, it includes knowledgeable people with Parkinson's and their families. So we've got Parkinson TV that Monique already mentioned, which is a web-based television show. Topics are determined by people living with Parkinson's. It's a roundtable discussion broadcast live on internet television, where we discuss topics that matter to people. And you can review the episodes offline. And that combination of well-trained professionals with a high caseload, effective teamwork, and educated patients in the Netherlands, where we've reached full nationwide expansion, leads to better care, fewer hip fractures, fewer hospital admissions, 30 million euros in cost savings each year, which is about 5% of our chronic annual expenditure on Parkinson care alone. Happier patients and happier healthcare professionals. And because of those wonderful results, which, by the way, have all been published in elite international scientific journals, the model has subsequently been exported initially to Norway, then to Luxembourg, and we are currently building networks in France, Italy, and Poland, and we hope to branch out soon to New Zealand and Australia, and there's a network in the United States. So really a wonderful experience, and we hope to share our knowledge with other regions, areas in the world where people have an interest in having a similar network approach.
Excellent. And speaking from the Norwegian experience, I can only say kudos for having started this, and thanks for keeping up the speed, and for sharing across. It's really a very good model, and those listeners that think, we should do this where I live, I think they should just get in touch with you, Bas, and your staff, and
yes,
you will be happy to bring them on board, I guess.
Yep.
Is there time for one more question, Edgar?
Yeah, just one you can have.
Yeah.
We have a couple of exit questions. We're nearing the end of this
Okay.
very good speech, but let's hear it, Monique.
Yeah, I know that there are some studies and activities, projects in your center, Bas, about creativity and art with Parkinson's. Can you share something about that?
Yes, I'll try to be brief in the interest of time, but this is one of my latest, but also greatest passions. I strongly believe that art is a wonderful way to express yourself, to enlarge your world, and to show that you are not a patient, which you may have seen is a word that I've avoided throughout this podcast. I speak about persons with Parkinson's or individuals with Parkinson's. But it really shows you as a person. And we've just completed a pilot project and are working on a much larger project where people with Parkinson's who were not spontaneously engaged in art were allocated to a consortium of artists who sat down with each individual and went over what we call a playground, a whole repertoire, a menu of different art interventions until they hit the individual sweet spot. And then that person would engage in that activity for 10 weeks. And compared to a control group who was on the waiting list, we showed marked reductions in anxiety. Very interestingly, a reduction in visits to healthcare professionals. So people visited the artist instead of the doctor, which is exactly what you want. And
that is so excellent.
I know. And they reached that magic state of flow. People know flow from sports, where, a sports team is in a flow and wins one game after the other. People in that program reach the state of flow, and flow is the magical balance between what you can do and a new challenge. And if you're in that sweet spot, and we saw people coming in with a tremor, freezing of gait, dyskinesias, and it all went away. I mean, goosebumps all over the place.
Amazing.
And now we need to show in a larger sample. We published a paper with Lorraine Kalia, who's my fellow editor-in-chief for Journal of Parkinson's Disease, called If Art Were a Drug. I'm a believer. But in order to persuade insurance companies, other payers, governments, but also patients and doctors that art truly is beneficial, you need to prove it just the way you prove that a drug is good. So you need to look at dose, adverse effects, efficacy, long-term compliance. So the pilot was extremely positive. We're now looking to find funding for a big study.
Excellent. That actually leads into the first exit question, since we're talking about arts. Your ship has sunk and you're washed onto one of those deserted islands with nearly nothing there. And you sit there and you think, if I only had a record player, I would put on... Which record would you put on, Bas? Only one. No, you cannot have the three by the same artist, by the same musician.
Is it one song or a whole album?
That's your free choice, if it is a single or a whole album or an extended play in between there.
Well, what I would do is, so it's interesting. If people look at my Instagram account, which is called Radboud Bloem, it says two things. A, I have a mutation in the gene for optimism. B, I'm a sucker for melancholic songs. So, and that's a weird combination. So I'm a born optimist, but when I listen to music, it is dark, it's black, it's about failed love affairs, misery. And I just indulge on all those disasters, probably because it motivates me to come out of the shithole and to do it better. So I've got my playlist on Spotify with my 30 darkest songs. And I would bring my Spotify playlist with those 30.
But you cannot bring the whole playlist. You now have to choose one.
It is probably The Tallest Man on Earth. It's a band called The Tallest Man on Earth.
Okay.
And which is very appropriate in my case. I'm
yes,
tall.
It is.
It's dark music, and it would be the song The Dreamer. I am a dreamer. I'm a very romantic person, I think, at least a romanticist. So I would bring The Dreamer by The Tallest Man on Earth.
Okay.
But it's dark. I warn people.
Yes. Well, the second exit question is a bit on the dark side as well, because picture now that you're in an elevator stuck between two floors. Who do you want to be stuck with? And you're totally free in time and space, dead or alive.
Oh, my wife.
Your wife.
My wife. Oh, it's no doubt. It's no doubt. You know, we've been together for over 30 years. She is amazing. She's the muse in my life. I can do the things I like because I receive all her support. She's beautiful. She's clever. She supports me all the way. She's also critical of what I do, but always in a constructive way. And it's funny how you see how couples can sometimes diverge. You know, you fall in love when you're 20, and then you're 50, and you look back, and you've both developed in different directions, and that happens all the time. So I understand why people sometimes divorce. What is so lovely about my wife and Inge and myself is we've matured and grown in parallel together. So looking back at 30 years, our roads have developed in parallel, and we're still a magical couple, and even more so than ever before. So I wouldn't mind being stuck with her for a long time in the elevator.
If she hears this podcast, she will be very happy to hear that.
She will indeed. She will indeed.
Oh, she will. But she will probably say something critical as well. I mean, she is the most wonderful and amazing person on the planet, I tell you.
Really nice to hear.
Good. I think that's an excellent way to finish off the round of a very good talk with you. Thank you for taking the time out from a very overstacked calendar, Bas. It's been a pleasure, really. And thanks to you, Monique, for...
And lest we forget... Oh, first thank Monique. Sorry.
Yeah. You're very welcome, Edgar. And I keep up the good work, Bas.
We do it together. That's the only way forward. And lest we forget, people, please come to Phoenix, come to WPC. It is the most gratifying, amazing event you will witness in years. If you cannot come, try to watch the episodes online. And I think between us and Eli, we should also think about how maybe people like myself, Monique, could also spend like a 5-minute video each day. Just, you know, you hold up your camera and say, my key things that I saw today is A, B, and C. That would be amazing for all the people at home who cannot attend, who maybe not be able to afford it or are too tired. So ultimately, WPC should serve all 12 million people with Parkinson's on the planet.
Great idea. That's how I found WPC, somebody's vlog.
Yep.
Good. As some people...
See you there, I hope. And otherwise, online or offline.
Absolutely. Thanks to both of you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Hear Here Parkinson's podcast. If you would like to experience the next World Parkinson Congress for yourself, to feel and see the change in real time, save the date to join us from May 24th to the 27th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Learn more at WPC2026.org. This podcast series is made possible with support from Blue Rock Therapeutics.